advertising is complementing everything else you're doing when those consumers are not on your website.
Welcome to Honest E-commerce, a podcast dedicated to cutting through the BS and finding actionable advice for online store owners. I'm your host, Chase Clymer, and I believe running a direct-to-consumer brand does not have to be complicated or a guessing game. On this podcast, we interview founders and experts who are putting in the work and creating real results. I also share my own insights from running our top Shopify consultancy, Electric Eye. We cut the fluff in favor of facts to help you grow your e-commerce business. Let's get on with the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Honest E-commerce. I'm your host, Chase Clymer, and today we're welcoming to the show Brendan Hughes. Brendan is the CEO of Optly, a software solution that combines proven digital ad strategies with innovative technology to enable marketers to accelerate their e-commerce store growth. And one thing that I actually absolutely loved with Brendan's biography that he shared with me that I read just a minute ago is Brendan Hughes has been doing e-commerce and digital since 1997. So take me back to way back when you first kind of cut your teeth in this industry. What was going on back then? Where'd you kind of get started?
Yeah, I was in college and, starting to do Nixers kind of either for kind of people I knew or for kind of college project. The first website I ever built was I went to Trinity College in Dublin and built the homepage for them, and then built kind of other kind of microsites around the place. And we were building very simple kind of things back then, hand coding in HTML, and using things like if you remember Macromedia, Flash, and Director, and building out Shockwave videos and animation. So it was it was a completely different world back then. Dreamweaver was pretty cool tool that had emerged on the scene and was making our lives easier for building websites. So long before WordPress and Shopify and all of these.
Yeah, I was around when Dreamweaver came out, and it was wild. Remember when I was younger, I was playing around with Dreamweaver and like PHP based websites, and you'd get templates off of, it was before Reddit, like IRC channels and stuff.
Yeah. It was a massive innovation at the time because everybody was hand coding, right? So every website that existed was hand coded, and we were all learning HTML and JavaScript. You still needed it with Dreamweaver. You still needed to be able to go into the back end and the code view and do things and to tweak the style sheets, etc. Then it all just became redundant very quickly.
Oh, absolutely. So after kind of diving in and kind of just experimenting in the world, where did you kind of settle kind of in the e-commerce space? And what was your first kind of real job in the industry?
Yeah, so I worked for quite a number of years in insurances and gaming, so gaming, gambling. So most of my career I was on the buy side, right, what we call it, which is buying media, being the e-commerce guy in a traditional business and in doing what we now call digital transformation, which is turning it into a digital first kind of company. So I then switched and I worked in one of actually at the time was the world's largest poker affiliate. So at a time when online poker was still illegal in the US, it was legal everywhere else in the world. So I was on the other side of the fence, really finding audiences and bringing them to kind of poker operators like, Full Tilt Poker and Poker Stars. And before I joined Optly, we get onto that in a little bit, but I worked with a large news publisher, so a media publisher. So I was actually selling ads on the other side. So I spent most of my career either buying or selling advertising. And really when I worked in the publisher, I realized how intransparent and how burdensome the whole ecosystem had become, right? Because if you were buying advertising, then you were paying a certain fee to access certain audiences. There was a massive gap, especially in programmatic advertising, between what a publisher was then able to offer and the price they were getting paid. So I became a bit obsessed with how murky the ecosystem had become and how many middlemen and tech providers and solutions were in the middle. And then meanwhile, the big platforms, the Googles and the Facebooks and now the Snapchats and the TikToks and the Pinterests are all kind of dominating kind of the world. So when I encountered, Optily has been around since 2011, mostly working with large media agencies, helping them with automating workflow around kind of buying social media, in particular Facebook and Instagram. But the guys had built some really clever kit that was creating a bridge between the Facebook and Google worlds, right? So getting those two big guys working together in a way that they'd never do themselves. I met the co-founders of the company. I really liked what they were doing and jumped in to kind of help them kind of commercialize that and bring it to market. And so our proposition really is for an e-commerce brand who is living in the big platforms, the Googles, the Facebooks, and the other big platforms, is unifying data in a way that the platforms will never allow you to do, but then driving insights and automation on the back of that. So based on a unified view, rooted in an e-commerce strategy, so a funnel marketing strategy, and then starting to provide recommendations of, hey, spend a little bit more money on this campaign, because it's delivering better results at the top of the funnel. And then with our automation, we'll make those changes. So we take money from Google and we give it to Facebook, or we take money from Facebook and give it to Google. So that we're kind of playing one off the other, right? And that's the sweet spot. So that's where we try and make a difference.
Absolutely. With all of our clients that we're working with, it's definitely, those are the two biggest players in the space right now. Facebook and Google are definitely the big drivers in paid media, especially with prospecting. So you touched on it just a second ago a little bit, but I know we're going to dive into it. So let's just do it now. Let's talk about, the 3-step funnel for kind of those that are just starting to get into paid acquisition and getting into, prospecting, and how like the funnels work and kind of what your goal should be at each step. So I'll kind of hand it over to you and let you kind of get started wherever you'd like.
Yeah. Obviously stop me because I'll keep going. But the reason, take a step back, right? So the funnel is kind of one of these constructs that's been around since some young media exec in 1898 in Philadelphia invented the AIDA funnel that we're kind of all familiar with. And there's a lot of research has gone on to kind of debunk the funnel and say, look, it can take, many, many touch points for an individual to make a purchase. How can we control that? How can we configure that? And what we step back to is all of the kind of the research around kind of consumer purchase behaviors. They all align around 3 or 4 stages that we all go through on a purchase journey, regardless of whether that purchase happens in an instant, in a single sessions, or, so it's an impulse purchase, or it happens over kind of days, weeks, or months. And the first stage is typically, I need to identify a problem that I want to solve, or a need that I want to fulfill, or a desire that I want to satisfy. And I'm either consciously or unconsciously aware of that, right? I become aware of that somehow. Unless that happens, then stage 2 doesn't happen, which is I start to undertake research and evaluation, looking at my options, information gathering. And if it's in a single session, that's leveraging, the frame of reference that I already have, because I already know about this category or this type of product. So I'm information gathering, looking at a website or looking at an ad that I'm seeing kind of in front of me. And the final kind of stage again that we all tend to go through is the actual decision, right? So actually making the decision to purchase. And the behavioral architects undertook some research with 300,000 in-market shoppers and identified kind of 5 or 6 what they called cognitive biases that influence that, that heavily influence that. So, for example, the scarcity bias. The more scarce that something becomes, the less stock that's available, the more desirable it becomes, right? And, things like social proof or authority bias. We listen to other people and we trust other people. The power of free. So, if something is available, but actually there's something free that comes with it, or there's some extra thing that's kind of available now, then that kind of drives. So when we are constructing an ad strategy, right, then where we see advertising, the role of advertising is to support what we call your owned and operated activities in e-commerce and digital marketing. So typically the people that we would engage with around optimization of ad strategies is, they're very much involved in conversion rate optimization. So making sure their website is working an awful lot better, and driving up the conversion rates. We would work with them, or they would typically be, heavily engaged in kind of CRM, email marketing, SMS marketing, understanding the segmenting the database, right? So advertising is complementing everything else you're doing when those consumers are not on your website. They are somewhere else and you're paying to engage with them, right? So, and there's, again, 4 or 5 things that come in at each stage of the funnel, right? So there's creative, and creative is, typically the most impactful thing, on the success of your advertising campaign. So creative and copy. There's audiences, right? And aligning audience strategies with kind of creative. There's the platforms and placements. So where are you positioning your ads, and what particular placements in the various platforms. We get into goals and metrics, right? So, what are you actually measuring at each stage of the funnel? What are the specific objectives? And how you're measuring and where you're measuring. And then there's budget, right? So how much am I spending at each stage of the funnel? So if I take you back through, let's start at the very top of the funnel, right? At the top of the funnel, actually my team says to me, Brendan, we're not really doing, when we recommend to people in e-commerce top of funnel, what we're actually doing is we're intercepting the middle of the top of the funnel, right? Because what we're finding, what we're going to the big platforms, the big ad platforms, we're saying, hey, find those people who are in market for our product, but are not actively searching. Okay. So we're not, very often e-commerce brands are not comfortable spending huge amounts of money building markets and creating markets, right? We're kind of allowing the platforms to help us find people who are already in market. So for example, we'll be using broad lookalike kind of audiences from our existing customer base or visitors to our website, etc., or interest-based audiences or purchase intent audiences. And what we generally see successful direct-to-consumer brands doing is using video, short form video in particular. And why that? Because, hey, we can build audiences very cost effectively. So in the US market, we can get somebody, an in-market consumer, to watch probably 15 seconds of our video on Facebook or Instagram or any of the platforms, probably for less than 1 cent, for that 15-second view. And so on a per human basis, that's probably one of the cheapest ways to find people who are engaging with our brand story, right? And if somebody swipes through our video after 1 second, we kind of ignore them and say, right, they're not really that engaged. Whereas if somebody watches 15 seconds of our video, at this stage of the funnel, what we often say is the product is not the hero, right? The consumer is the hero, or the problem we're solving is the hero, right? So we're telling, it's a much more emotional engagement. So very often it'll be, we work with a lot of pet brands, and, in the, at the top of the funnel, the video won't be, about the flea collar, which is maybe, going to stop the itching and the scratching. It'll be about the cute puppies and how much fun they're having when they're not kind of annoyed and frustrated, right? So we're putting the character, the human at the center. And we're using that video to build audiences as cost effectively as possible. We're measuring, engagement with our video. So cost per view through, but also with a secondary metric of click-through rates. So which ads and which audiences are more likely to, one, watch the entire video, and then two, kind of drive click-throughs, okay? But click-through is not our primary metric. What we're then doing is we're taking that audience and we're nurturing it through the next stage of the funnel. And for us, the next stage of the funnel is they're in research and evaluation mode. They're maybe coming from the top of the funnel, or maybe we might be using custom intent audiences in YouTube and search, and saying, people who are in market searching in Google, but maybe over on YouTube, that, we're showing them a video which is maybe a little bit longer. Maybe it's a 30-second. Maybe it's actually highlighting features and benefits of our product. In the Facebook, Instagram world, we love to use carousels because each frame is almost like the frame of a storyboard, where we can highlight different feature and benefit of our offering. At this stage of the funnel, we're typically driving traffic, right? But the traffic, so we're trying to find the cheapest traffic and drive it to a website. But with the qualitative kicker that it has a high propensity to convert. So at this stage of the funnel, we will see conversions. We'll be driving people to our landing pages, and we'll be seeing them purchase. But if we're getting, for example, an overall return on ad spend of, let's say it's 10 overall, right? So for every $1 we're spending, we're getting 10 across all of our campaigns. We're getting $10 of revenue that we can attribute back to our advertising. Then maybe at the mid stage of the funnel, we're getting it between a 2 and a 4x ROAS. So it's a much lower ROAS than the overall. At the lower end of the funnel, then, right, we're really talking to people who are at the point where they've demonstrated purchase intent either on our website or through engaging with our channels or through search. So we're very often using very product driven ads. So we obviously Google Shopping kicks in here. We're using dynamic product ads in the Facebook, Instagram world, and all of the platforms, in Snap and Pinterest. So we're actually putting the product back in front of people that they were interested in. And we have very strong calls to action here. We're not in the learn mode anymore. We're in the shop now. We're introducing scarcity and urgency. We've got strong offers in place because these are people who've probably spent time on our website, researched our products, maybe added a product to the basket but haven't converted. And now we're saying, okay, what do we need to do to get you across the line? The other cohort that comes in here at the bottom of the funnel, or people who've purchased from us previously. So we're integrating our email lists, our CRM data and our customer segment data. And we're getting that data back into the ad platforms and speaking to the customers at the right time about the products that we believe they might be interested in. Sometimes people say to me, why would I spend money with Facebook and Google to talk to my own customers because I have their email address? And the way we think about this is, yes, you're going to spend money, but you're actually not going to spend an awful lot of money because you have a very defined set of customers. It'll be relatively small compared to the universe of audiences. And you're giving them a very specific message. And they're seeing the same message in their emails that they're getting from you. They're seeing the same message when they go onto the web and on the various platforms that they're on. And then when they click through on their website, they're seeing the same message and the same offer on the website. So you're hitting them in as many different places as possible in a very cost-effective way, because of that. So and the reason we do this, right? So I'll finish up now, Chase, on my ramble, but is most of the clients who come to us, right, when they're in e-commerce, we all believe in the funnel in some way, where every marketer kind of gets it, but by and large, most of us are stuck in the bottom of the funnel, right? We're doing all of the smart shopping campaigns and we're doing all the product ads. And the reason people now go to somebody like us or go to another organization or marketing agency is they're struggling to scale. They've hit a plateau. It has become inefficient, or they're competing head to head, sometimes with their own partner retailers if they're a direct to consumer brand, and it's not scaling for them. And time and again, what we find is that when you invest a little bit more in the middle funnel and then maybe in the upper funnel, all of a sudden the lower funnel becomes much more efficient, and actually your overall funnel becomes much more efficient as well. So I guess the final message on it is what we're trying to do is nurture people through your funnel, right? Through the platforms that you can control and the ad placements that you can control, so that they spend less time researching and comparing you on a pure price basis with others in the market who have maybe kind of similar products.
If you're struggling with scaling your sales, maybe Electric Eye can help. Our team has helped our clients generate millions of dollars in additional revenue through our unique brand scaling framework. You can learn more about our agency at electriceye.io. That's ELECTRICEYE.io. Mesa is the Shopify expansion pack to level up your brand. By turning all your internet-connected apps into your business epicenter, Mesa can lighten your workload and tame the day-to-day chaos of running your store. Join other successful brands that have learned how to balance clever workflows with a solid infrastructure to get more done without more overhead. Whether you need to order data in Google Sheets, products on Etsy, or customers added to HubSpot, Mesa has you covered. Peace of mind is right around the corner when all your apps are working seamlessly together. To put it quite simply, Mesa is a better way to work. Search Mesa, that's M-E-S-A, in the Shopify App Store and download the app today. Is your store holiday ready? Now is the time to make sure you and your team are prepared for the busy season ahead. Gorgias, an omni-channel help desk built for e-commerce, has machine learning functionality that takes the pressure off small support teams and gives them the tools to manage a large number of inquiries at scale, especially during the holiday season. Gorgias combines all your different communication channels like email, SMS, social media, live chat, and even phone into one platform and gives you an organized view of all your customer inquiries. Their powerful functionality can save your support team hours per day and makes managing customer orders a breeze. Merchants can close tickets faster than ever with the help of pre-written responses integrated with customer data to increase the overall efficiency of customer support. Their built-in automations also free up time for support agents to give better answers to complex product-related questions, providing next-level support, which helps increase sales, brand loyalty, and recognition. Eric Bandholtz, the founder of Beard Brand, says, "We're a seven-figure business, and we have essentially one person on customer support and experience. It's impossible to do it without tools such as Gorgias to help us innovate." Learn how to level up your customer support by speaking to their team. Visit gorgias.grsm.io/honest. Mention this podcast when you sign up to get 2 months free. That's gorgias.grsm.io/honest. Our partner Rewind can protect your Shopify store with automated backups of your most important data. Rewind should be the first app you install to protect your store against human error, misbehaving apps, and collaborators gone bad. It's like having your very own magic undo button. Trusted by over 100,000 businesses, from side hustles to the biggest online retailers like Knix, Gatorade, and Movement Watches. Best of all, respond to any of their welcome emails and mention this podcast, Honest E-Commerce, and get your first month absolutely free. Getting an online business off the ground isn't easy. So if you find yourself working late, tackling a to-do list that's a mile long with your 5th cup of coffee by your side, remember, great email doesn't have to be complicated. That's what Klaviyo is for. It's the email and SMS platform built to help e-commerce brands earn more money by creating genuine customer relationships. Once you set up your free Klaviyo account, you can start sending beautiful, branded messages in minutes thanks to drag-and-drop design templates and built-in guidance. And with e-commerce specific recommendations and insights, you can keep growing your business as you go. Get started with a free account at klaviyo.com/honest. That's KLAVIYO.com/HONEST. All right, Brendan, I didn't let you, I didn't want to interrupt you, and I was taking notes during the whole thing. So I got a couple of questions for you. And the first thing, I guess it's more of a statement, is I really like how you pointed out that with modern, the data that we have through all these modern platforms is we're not really doing, prospecting with cold traffic anymore because we can get a lot more targeted. And so I really enjoyed hearing that from you, and I'm going to be stealing that and using that when I'm talking to clients in the future. But I guess what I wanted to point out for our audience was how to differentiate it so they can understand what we're talking about here. So historically, let's say that you did a magazine campaign, right? Traditional print media, and you did a magazine article or a magazine advertisement about, let's use dog treats again, about dog treats, and you're putting it out. Obviously, you can get a little more targeted with putting it in a dog magazine, or maybe you're putting it in a more broad audience type of magazine, but you have no idea that the person picking up that magazine is interested in buying those dog treats or not. With Facebook and Google now, you can do intent-based search. You can do lookalike audiences where it's like, well, based upon all the statistic data about this person, they're just like these 1,800 people that have bought this product before, so they're probably going to want to buy this product. So it's definitely, we are going, maybe we're shortening the funnel these days with all this technology, but it was a cool concept, and you're the first person to point it out to me.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's the opportunity, because these platforms have so much data, and whether, it may be in time that gets restricted, but for now, because they're pixels or the conversion APIs, or maybe even Google because they have all of the search intent data, it's there, it's available to us. And it means that as as young brands or as kind of brands that are kind of trying to make a breakthrough, we don't need to spend a huge amount of money with spray and pray, right? Spending money in the hope that people might be interested in our category and in our product. The platforms can do a lot of that heavy lifting for us, and it can be much more cost effective. Feel free to take that. I think I've heard it described a bit like, we're in the disruptive marketing space, right? Because other people maybe have done a lot of work and done the heavy lifting, and we're kind of coming in the middle of the top of the funnel or the bottom of the top of the funnel, right? And trying to intercept those purchase journeys.
Yeah, and something else that you highlighted on was, why do I want to retarget through Facebook and Instagram or Google or any of these other kind of social or search platforms when I have this person's email or phone number? And, everything you said, I 100% agreed on, and I just kind of wanted to double down on it. It's like, you need to talk to your customers where they are. Oftentimes, even if you have their email, they're probably not checking your newsletters half the time. Like, if you can get in front of them where they're hanging out, maybe that, Instagram is where they're hanging out, you can drive that awareness back up and increase your repurchase rate. Obviously it's a lot cheaper through like SMS or email, but all of the platforms working in tandem, you're going to see a lot more repeat customers.
Yeah. If you remember in the old days, Chase, brand marketers, before the concept of performance marketers used to say, people need to see our ad in at least 5 different locations, right, before they'll actually kind of engage with us as a brand or product from us. And that's kind of what we're saying is, do your email marketing, do your SMS marketing, do all of the things that you're doing, but it's not going to cost you an awful lot to also talk to those customers and be very specific with them that this is a product message and maybe an offer for you that you've seen in multiple different spaces. And you're trying to, again, interrupt them because they know your brand, right? They're ready for you. They're open to you. And now you're trying to say, hey, jump back in here. And you're repeating the same message in multiple places. So, yeah.
I completely agree. At the agency, we consider it 2 different approaches. So you've got your paid media approach is basically, you got your Facebook, your Instagram, your Google, Pinterest, TikTok, whatever advertising you're doing. So there's a whole strategy behind that. And then you've got your retention marketing strategy, which is more on like, okay, you have their email, their SMS, push notifications, or address if you're sending physical mailing stuff. Like, while they work in tandem, they are kind of separate strategies. So you kind of need to approach them both in the proper way, because what you're going to say to someone who is vaguely familiar with your brand versus what you're going to say to somebody that has purchased a product or two are 2 completely different styles of copywriting.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. What we see is just from a practical perspective, platforms like Klaviyo and MailChimp, they now integrate natively with the big ad platforms. So we're increasingly seeing people with their email lists, which are probably segmented, as you say, based on recency and frequency kind of models of, these lapsed customers are like my most valuable customers. Those mailing lists now exist in parallel in the ad platforms, and the same styles of messaging are being used with the same offers and same creative as in the email kind of and other channels. And obviously the important thing there to think about is how we measure and compare what we're doing there with what we're doing for, as we're nurturing kind of unknown audiences or new consumers into our funnel. They're different, right? And you can't, it's a bit like, brand search, right? We got to put that into a different bucket and not mix it up with the kind of prospecting and the generic work we're doing, right? Because they're different, right? And the efficiencies you get from talking to your existing customers is completely different than, when you're out and trying to nurture people through a funnel. So, but yeah, very increasingly we're seeing so many, brands, I say, integrating all of their different data sources into one. So getting that data layer working as efficiently as possible is key.
Absolutely. So my next question was around earlier we talked a bit about kind of return on ad spends and how they vary at different parts of the funnel. And the example you used was, retargeting, middle of the funnel, you could maybe see a 10x return, or a blended would be a 10x return, where middle it'd be a little bit less at a 5x, and bottom would be a lot higher, and maybe a 20x, and then your blended would be around 10. What I wanted to kind of dive in more is proper expectation settings about return on ad spend, especially in e-commerce, because I know you were just pulling numbers kind of out of thin air, but I don't want people to get into the game and expect those numbers is really what I want to talk about.
Okay. So people always want to know, right? They want to ask the question, and come at it from a couple of ways, right, Chase? So one is, well, what do you need to make, right? So what's the margin your business is running at? And increasingly, we're trying to shift the conversation away to customer acquisition costs, right? Because if you've got your website is converting at a certain level, and then your CRM and your customer lifetime values and your ability to retain customers, then it shifts the conversation away from the ROAS on one single purchase, right? And that's where we want to get to. And especially subscription brands, they have that nailed. They know that like 30% of my customers will jump into subscriptions or be repeat customers. So therefore I'm willing to have a lower ROAS, a return on ad spend, on that initial purchase, because I know that customer's going to stay with me and be loyal, and I'll recoup. I think what I find is that most e-commerce brands have an expectation of somewhere between 5 and 10. Seems like a reasonable expectation. And then we get into, well, it depends, right? Because it depends on the purchase price of your product, how big your audience is, and so for you and I to toss it around and say, what should we be setting the expectation at, right, is going to be hard, right? So I'll give you one example, right, and show you how wild it can be, but then ultimately it settles, right? So a regional bookstore, right, with kind of probably just over 20 kind of bookstores in a region of like 5-6 million people, okay? And they've been doing Google, kind of bottom of funnel activity in Google, and actually getting online, getting kind of 35 to 40x ROAS, okay? And you're thinking, wow, okay, amazing. And so look, we want to do Facebook and Instagram, and this is where our expectations are. So I was like, well, that's not going to happen. But actually, in middle funnel, because they had done nothing, there was a latent market kind of appetite, and it was a regional, so kind of relatively well-known brand in the region. Launching mid-funnel actually kind of kicked on to about 25x ROAS straight away, right? So driving just traffic campaigns, doing lots of kind of, highlighting value prop, etc. of their offering. And then the lower funnel stuff actually scaled towards between 45 and 50, right? For that initial bump of maybe kind of 4 to 6 weeks. And of course, then it settles down, and it's kind of probably overall tracking at somewhere between kind of like 8 to 10, right? Overall, right? So you get this initial bump, especially if you haven't been active in the market, and there's some level of familiarity, or there's a latent kind of market appetite. And that's for, like, think about a book and you're competing with kind of major kind of online retailers in that space, et cetera, et cetera. But, so that's how great it can be, right? But on the other end, then of course most people are down, looking to get a 5 or a 10 on an initial purchase, and then increasingly actually happier with lower if you know that you're acquiring a customer and you're able to retain that customer over time. So somewhere in there, right, is the spectrum. I don't know if that's, if you concur, or am I, obviously I'm setting expectations way too high, right? With starting with a 25x ROAS. Yeah.
Well, you're hitting the nail on the head with, it is all over the place. And then the one thing that I guess I need to highlight here too is, like, each of these numbers don't exist in a bubble. When people are like, oh, our return needs to be above 10, I'm like, okay, well, stop prospecting. Like, that's an easy way to do it. So you got to understand the whole picture to really, and like you said, it goes back to what are your goals. So, are you trying to just sell out of inventory, or are you trying to grow the business and grow the customer base and scale things? So it does go back to like, what are your goals as a business? And what you mentioned earlier with the bookstore, we've seen similar results of just crazy returns for brands that haven't been doing anything, and then they start getting into the paid game. But what I do need to highlight here is these aren't startups. These are brands that have data to back it up.
Yes. Yeah, no, agreed. 100%. Yeah. So when you're talking about a bookstore, what I'm saying is there's already brand awareness and there's a latent appetite for engaging with this brand. They just never did the Facebook, Instagram stuff before, right? So people know the brand. And so what they were doing was tapping into an existing audience. So you can get that bump. For startups, there's a lot more work to do. So what we would look at with startups is, very often, like, where's your core conversion rate on your website? Who are those audiences that are converting? Now let's go find those, right? And let's start small and let's build out from there. To be getting, a 2 to 5x ROAS early doors is good, right? And very often what you find is people are in that space, it's working, right? And now they want to know, how do I grow that and how do I scale it and with that same level of efficiency? And it maybe comes back to, maybe we're getting caught up because we're getting the numbers, but it's about, and you said it there, is the difference between, is it short-term goals you've got? You're trying to clear out some kind of inventory and you got a really strong price proposition, you just want to kind of empty the warehouse. Or is it, are you doing you're looking at longer term brand building? So there's the marketing effectiveness topic, right? Which, we talk about quite a bit, but it's Les Binet and Peter Field, and there's a lot of research that says, look, what's the right balance between, let's call it upper funnel activity, where you're brand building and generating kind of a lot of awareness of your brand and engaging with your brand purely on a brand level, and then the performance marketing side. And the research that they would have done over a number of years would suggest that for achieving those long-term sales objectives, you've got to be spending 60% in upper funnel and 40% in lower funnel, right? Now, very few startups or e-commerce brands, full stop, are willing to invest 60% of their ad dollars in long-term brand building, because we don't have usually enough cash or time to kind of do that. So what we're trying to do is to help people move from where they're spending maybe 90 to 100% of their money in lower funnel, and actually start moving it kind of further up the funnel. And if possible, having some budget set aside for experimentation. So once people get settled, and I'm sure see this as well, they're comfortable in the Google world and what they're getting. They're comfortable in the Facebook, Instagram world. Maybe they're also comfortable in the Microsoft Bing world. And now they're putting 5 to 10% of their spend into maybe TikTok or Snap or Pinterest or maybe Quora or some other platform where they think their audience might be, because that might help to, again, broaden out their market efficiently, because maybe those platforms aren't as competitive as the ones they're on at the moment. Absolutely. I think the experimentation budget is once you can get to the point where you can afford that, it's really interesting, because seeing, acquisition cost per channel is very surprising. We see insane returns on Pinterest for some of our women's brands, and it's just because not as many people are advertising on there versus Facebook and Instagram. And it is kind of that simple at times. Is you just got to step back and think about it. No, and like these they're auctions, right? So we're bidding for eyeballs or for humans to interact with our brands, and if there's not as many people bidding, for the audience we're chasing, then that's the opportunity. And we find, like, you're right, Pinterest is probably an underappreciated platform for e-commerce for certain cohorts, right? Especially for a lot of direct-to-consumer brands where they're creating new and interesting products. I think how Pinterest describe it is it's the home of unbranded search, right? I'm looking for a new, pin cushion to a new dog toy to something. And I'm relatively specific, right? In terms of what I'm searching for in that platform, but I'm generally not searching for specific brands, right? Because it's not what you do there. So it creates a great opportunity for discovery, of your brand in that platform. And then the job is to nurture them through, right? And make sure they don't then jump elsewhere, and start price shopping, with somebody else who's doing who's selling the same product as you. So it's a great place we find to actually go find those people who are in market and then nurture them kind of through the funnel.
Absolutely. So I do want to quickly touch on the actual product, Optily, a little bit more, and just what would be like the best fit as far as like a listener out there. What kind of bucket would they fall under, and to see some decent results from partnering up with you guys?
Most of our clients who are jumping onto our software, they're probably advertising on Facebook and Instagram and on Google, maybe on YouTube, and a little bit of display advertising. What our platform does is helps to simplify the complexity when you're advertising across multiple platforms, right? So, and what we've done is we've taken the funnel strategy we've been talking about and we've baked it into the software. So what our platform would do is, you connect your ad accounts, connect your analytics, for example, your Google Analytics account, and our platform will start to organize all of your ad campaigns into different stages of the funnel based on the objectives and the bid strategies that you have in place. So it'll give you a suggested structure. It'll show you how much you're investing at different stages of the funnel and the different types of results you're getting. And then our optimization engine looks at the ad platform data. So, hey, what does Facebook say that it's delivering? But then also what does your analytics platform? So, for example, in Google Analytics, Facebook doesn't know that this consumer also saw an ad in YouTube and also on Google and clicked and bought, or clicked on something in an email, etc. But analytics has that data. It has that kind of attribution going on, especially in the e-commerce reporting. So we blend the data through. So we take the data from analytics for that campaign and we take what the platform itself is saying. And then our platform starts to give some recommendations about where to invest. So this platform is more likely to drive, or this ad campaign is more likely to drive direct results, whereas this one is a little bit more indirect, right? So the investment level might be kind of different there. So typically, our clients are probably managing their ad spend on Facebook and Google themselves internally. They're scaling up, and the pressure point comes when they want to, and they're very often good at one platform. So you're maybe good at Facebook or maybe good at Google. And they're looking to to scale up. Advertising is not keeping up with the growth of the business. And what our platform does is it gives them a place to see everything from the different platforms in one environment, in one dashboard, and then starts to give recommendations and suggestions which they can action through our platform, or they can say, actually, no, I'm okay with what I'm doing here, but and they can choose to ignore it as well. So you don't have to implement the action. So it's really for the a scaling kind of e-commerce direct to consumer brand. What we find is that founder-led direct-to-consumer brands in particular tend to want more control internally. They want to have retained a transparency in terms of what's happening, maybe a little bit micromanaging kind of what's going on. So they're looking for tools that they can plug in, into their stack that help them with that. And so that's where we kind of slot in, is really supporting the internal teams as they're trying to scale their advertising.
Absolutely. So you said supporting the internal team. So what I want to ask here is, like, if we don't have any internal expertise, this doesn't replace, the need for a subject matter expert like on team or a contractor to be helping out, right?
Yeah, no, it works hand in glove. So usually the person who uses our platform is comfortable in the Facebook and or Google worlds, right? So usually, and they're still building the campaigns in there. We're an optimization solution. So you're living in the Facebook and Google world, building your campaigns, aligning your audiences with your creative, etc. And where Optily comes in gives you a dashboard where you can see everything across the different platforms together. right? Because that's hard. Like that's either spreadsheets or maybe it's Data Studio or maybe if you're in Power BI or Tableau, right? So it can get very complex very quickly, pulling everything together. And then what we do that's quite a bit different is we're very agnostic, right? We don't care whether you're spending money on Facebook or Google, right? We're looking at your campaign based on your goals. So my goal is to maximize visibility right at the top of the funnel. So here's all the campaigns from across the different ad platforms that are doing that. Now, how are they working together? Which is most cost effective, which is driving the highest click-through rates? And between those campaigns, where should I be spending more time and money? Okay. So I sometimes describe it as it's a bit like if you're in the Facebook world, we treat the different campaigns and the different platforms as if they were ad sets within a Facebook campaign, right? If you're in the Google world, then it's probably like, just keep different keyword groups, right? So we don't care that it's Facebook and Google, it's Instagram or whatever, right? So we're trying to just break down the barriers between the big platforms and actually kind of have them playing off each other a little bit. Hey, I'm getting better value from this YouTube campaign today. Grant, I'll put a bit more money into that today. I'll take a little bit of money from Instagram and because hey, it's not doing so good today.
Absolutely, and I'm glad that you kind of highlighted that because I feel like some founders are always looking for shortcuts, especially with marketing strategy or just advertising in general. And I really want to just harp on like there's nothing that will help if you don't understand the core principles of it. Like you still need to have that understanding before you can make it work for you. So I appreciate you diving in there and kind of laying down the law, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, no, actually, I do that the same. I think probably as you probably if I'm speaking with a founder or marketing director who's interested in our product, before I go talk about the product or show them the product, I have one slide and we talk about strategy and we talk about funnels and we make sure that this makes sense, right? And if people don't buy into that and the need to invest, then we're probably not the right solution for them.
Absolutely. So you have an offer that you wanted to share with our audience today. I'll let you kind of give the pitch before we go here.
Yeah. So look, our software is, it's self-service. There's a 14-day free trial. You can simply connect within kind of 2 to 3 minutes, connect your Facebook ads and your Google ads and your analytics accounts, and you get kind of free insights. So for all of your listeners, we're delighted to also add in, an extra 15% discount on their first year with us and a free 1-hour kind of ad strategy consultation with one of our ad strategists. So the link will be in the show notes and, delighted to offer that to all of your listeners.
Absolutely. Brendan, thanks so much for coming on our show. And I can't wait to talk to you next week and jump on yours.
Yeah. Looking forward to it, Chase. Thank you for your time.
All right. I can't thank our guests enough for coming on the show and sharing their knowledge and journey with us. We've got a lot to think about and potentially add into our own business. You can find all the links in the show notes. Make sure you head over to honestycommerce.co to check out all of the other amazing content that we have. Make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and obviously, if you're thinking about growing your business, check out our agency at electriceye.io. Until next time.